see what we got going on this week. It's been 20 weeks of going hard, you know, where I increased my activity, where I cut out carbs. And here I am 20 weeks later, no results. 600 calorie deficit, 200, 800, 1,000, 600.
Still not losing weight, the numbers have to be off.
So we're getting a test done that tells me exactly how many calories I burn naturally.
So this proves that he's in a calorie deficit?
They kept telling me that these trackers are usually wrong. My Oura ring is accurate.
I think it's stress. Like, the dude's always thinking about work.
Quitting my business isn't an option. We've got to try something new. Can I lose this weight by doing inner work?
When we finally soften into our physical practices, our bodies fall into equilibrium.
When I'm in a relaxed state, I lean out, and I lean out a lot. It's time to do the one thing that we were told to do, but we never did.
What's going on, guys? So if you know Charlie Rocket, he's an incredibly inspirational person. He's a very charitable person. He gives people so many different things to people in need, and he's lost a tremendous amount of weight before, but unfortunately he put it back on. So today we're going to be looking at exactly why he's struggling to lose the weight again, and what are some of the things that he can do differently in order to start seeing progress. So let's take a look at some of the posts that he's been making. And here's a video he made a couple of days ago.
If you don't know, I've gained 50 pounds in the past year.
Do you know how many times I've wanted to just...
I can really resonate with what he just did, because if you attach yourself to that scale, most of the time the scale is not going to comply. And if all of your emotions, all of your self-worth is defined by what that scale tells you, you will most of the time just feel absolutely terrible. But if you focus on other ways of seeing progress that are not just the number on the scale, you will find that you will be more content and you will make better results as a result.
Pretty embarrassing considering I was in the biggest Nike commercial of all time.
Lose 120 pounds and become an Ironman.
And honestly,
he's lost a lot of weight before. So going from being overweight to losing the weight to putting the weight back on is a struggle in and of itself.
I feel like a fraud. I went from my clothes not fitting right because I was too thin to my clothes not fitting at all because I'm too overweight. When you're losing weight, the cheers are so loud. When you're gaining weight, no one says a thing.
That is so true, because when you're losing weight, you get compliments from a lot of different people telling you to keep going. You're doing an amazing job, which keeps pushing you forward. However, when you're gaining weight, nobody tells you that you're putting on a few pounds because they don't want to offend you. They don't want to make you feel like crap, which will compound by itself, because if nobody tells you anything and you're still doing the same things you're doing for maybe a few months, you can easily put on 20, 30, 50 pounds, maybe even 100 without even realizing it. And if you get to this point, it's very difficult to turn around and to make changes again.
You go through it alone. You fight it alone. And honestly, I need help. I need a support system. And I was thinking we use Instagram and maybe some...
What he just said about having a support system is important, because if you're doing this by yourself, if you're trying to lose weight by yourself, if you have nobody to turn to, nobody for feedback, you may try a whole bunch of different diets. You may try a whole bunch of different exercise routines because you just want to. There's nobody to give you feedback. And especially if you start to make, or maybe if you hit a wall or you don't make any progress, you start to second guess yourself. If there's nobody to turn to, there's no support system, there's no group, it makes it more difficult for you, because you may feel like you're at a loss about what you should actually be doing to keep progressing. So support system, and maybe surrounding yourself with as many like-minded people that want to see you win, should be really prioritized when trying to become healthier and lose weight.
Y'all want to join me on this journey? If you do, I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear your ideas of what y'all think should be in the challenge. One thing I know is I'm just ready to do this with a community instead of doing it by myself. If you don't know,
Yes, it can become very frustrating if you can't see progress, especially for 20 weeks, which is how long he's been trying to do this so far by himself. And just looking through his comments, you can see so many people just supporting him. Keep going, you got this. I mean, everybody wants to see him win. And just scrolling through some of his photos, I I believe this is his old transformation when he lost 120 pounds. And the right photo is when he was around the time when he was in that Nike commercial. So going from the left to the right, essentially back to the left, but a few years further ahead of time, it's frustrating. You know, it's a whole different struggle than just putting weight on once. You're doing this twice. And also, if you've done this before, maybe you will feel like you should do this again, but it'll be easier this time. And oftentimes it doesn't work that way because different struggles come to light, different business opportunities, different scheduling, different things that happen in life to prevent you from losing weight even easier the second time. Let's see. He helps a lot of people. It's absolutely amazing to see, just looking through his page, how many people he helps. I think we saw Oprah or her. Yeah, there's Oprah on his page too. I mean, he's doing a lot of amazing things, and you can only imagine how busy his schedule is.
See what we got going on this week. It's been 20 weeks of going hard, where I increased my activity.
So he gained weight the week that he weighed himself on compared to the previous week. And this is something that will get you off track if you only look at the scale as the only way to measure progress. And the scale will not always comply. The scale will oftentimes go up when you think that it should be going down because your body's holding on to more fluids, more volumes of food. Maybe you had a bit more carbs and sodium and your body's holding on to more water, glycogen. So, and he also mentioned that he's been going hard, right? Going hard is not a very definitive way, not a very accurate measurement of anything, essentially. It's a measure of, a personal measure of intensity at a certain period of time. And it's also relative to the person and what they consider to be going hard. Because if you go hard for a few days, but then you kind of don't do anything for the next 5 days, you're not really going hard, you're kind of just leveling out, you're pretty much at baseline, and oftentimes when people go hard, they kind of burn out, and it's usually better to be more consistent and to do less than to do as much as possible for a shorter period of time. Like, consistency will always be intensity. And this may also tie into the feeling of wanting to have instant gratification, like trying to aim for 5 or 10 pounds of weight loss per week because you want to see those crazy numbers. So you may try to do crazier things to reach those crazier numbers, and you may hit those numbers, but you may burn out. Maybe you will even put on a few pounds the following week because you had such a crazy restriction to get to that number that now you're going to have a huge surplus because you feel burnt out and you're trying to maybe set your baseline back, so it's not always the best idea to go as hard as possible, as quickly as possible, and toning things down and being more consistent will usually provide more and better results.
Where I cut out carbs, and here I am 20 weeks later, no results. 600 calorie deficit, 200, 800,000, 600.
Still not losing weight, the numbers have to be off.
So we're getting a test done that tells me exactly how many calories I burn naturally.
So this proves that he's in a calorie deficit?
They kept telling me that these trackers are usually wrong. My Oura ring is accurate.
So a lot of these trackers are inaccurate because they're not that accurate in the first place, especially the difference between the Oura ring or maybe the Fitbit is going to be inaccurate even between those two measurements. And the more complications, the more tools you start to focus on, the less consistent somebody may become because the more pieces to the puzzle you begin to add, the less structure, less control you begin to feel. The most important thing is to have a consistent level of caloric or energy expenditure and a consistent level of energy input via food or drinks, and adding in how many calories you're burning, your sleep schedule, your resting heart rate, maybe it's whatever other feelings or energy measurements that they are. I mean, it's cool to look at it once in a while, but to rely on it every single day to try to reach your goal, it just adds more complexity. And as a result, it may lead to more frustrations because there's more focus on things that essentially don't really even matter that much.
I think it's stress. Like, the dude's always thinking about work.
Quitting my business isn't an option.
We've got to try something new.
Can I lose this weight by doing inner work.
When we finally soften into our physical practices, our bodies fall into equilibrium.
When I'm in a relaxed state, I lean out, and I lean out a lot. It's time to do the one thing that we were told to do, but we never did. See what we got going on.
What he said about when he's less stressed out and he's more calm, he tends to lean out more. And that's extremely important to understand, because even though calories are the most important thing, if you can't maintain your weight if you're in a calorie deficit. It's not possible. However, if you're stressed out, if you're low energy, if you're focused on other things, the likelihood of you focusing on things like meeting your calorie deficit becomes a lot less consistent, because if you have a business that you want to uphold, or there's things in business that you want to fix, your priorities go towards that business or towards relationships or towards whatever it is that's stressing you out. So your likelihood of sticking to your activity that you have to do or your nutritional guidelines becomes to have less adherence. So you want to figure out what's stressing you out, fix those stressors, and as a result, you will find that it's easier to stick to your nutritional guidelines once your stress is reduced. And stress, energy, your sleep should never be underestimated as far as the importance of losing weight. By itself, stress, hormones, to a degree, and your energy levels, they don't directly relate to your caloric expenditure, but it relates to how are you able to adhere to your caloric requirements. Like if you want to eat 2,000 calories today and you feel like absolute crap, are you going to do whatever you want or you have to do in order to reach those 2,000 calories? Probably not, because you got stress in your mind. So your adherence is a lot less if you got these things going on. So just looking through his photos, I mean, he's doing great things. And he mentioned before his business is a priority, which with a lot of business owners, they tend to put themselves last, as well as parents, and they put their business or their kids first. And if you do this over a long period of time, your health may start to deteriorate because you put yourself before other things that are important to you. So what happens usually is when you put yourself first, it may seem selfish at first to the person, but if you put yourself first, if you lose weight, become healthy, you allow everybody else to get the best version of you, whether it's your kids that get to experience the best version of their parent, or your business gets to grow because you can give it the proper focus that you want to give it. So what Charlie is doing now, it seems like it's too much. He's doing too much of everything. He's kind of going head first into the wall, hope that it sticks, kind of maybe burn out for a few days. Maybe he goes hard for a couple of days and then just loses track the rest of the time. So the only way to do this is to have tracking, different things that are tracked, such as nutrition that's tracked, not with a pen and paper, because that's, especially for somebody as busy as him, tracking things on a piece of paper every single day or weighing your food may not be the most simplest route. What I would recommend is to maybe order a meal prep company to deliver all of his meals every single day, because probably all meal prep companies have a barcode that you can scan that will plug right into like MyFitnessPal or a different calorie tracking app, and you can see your breakdown of calories, macros, all that kind of stuff that will save you time and frustration from writing this food down on a piece of paper. So if he gets a meal prep company delivered with every single meal, like 3 to 5 meals a day or whatever, he will find that it's easier to stick to his nutritional goals because he doesn't have to cook, doesn't have to order, doesn't have to really write food down or weigh it, which will apply and create more consistency with what he's doing. And it's never going to be easy, right? It's never going to be easy, but it can be made easier if it's made as simple as possible. I think he had a video. I think it was this one.
In 20 weeks, we're up 4 pounds.
My goal is to get to 200 pounds, and I only have 20 weeks.
I'm not interested in going another.
So what you just heard him say is he wants to lose 20 pounds in 20 weeks, I believe. And that's also not the right mindset, because you don't want to set timelines for yourself, because most of the time things will happen during that timeline that will make things more difficult, things that you didn't expect to happen. and giving yourself a concrete timeline for a certain amount of weight loss without accounting for any things that may occur during that time period may set you up for failure, because it's an unrealistic time frame. And usually, as a general rule of thumb, it will likely take you twice as long at minimum to reach your goal than you think it will. So not setting timelines for yourself, just being consistently good enough, will be a lot more beneficial.
20 weeks. My biggest hurdle has been business. How am I letting business, something I love so much, ruin my dream? It's always been this way, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I say we start over. You know, when you get knocked down, you gotta get back up. I wanna do it different this time, and I wanna do crazier things.
Charlie has no idea he's about to have to do a lot of push-ups.
Chase the dream and be happy. Let's have.
What he just mentioned about chasing the dream and being happy, this is also important to understand, because if you tie your happiness to a time, to a physique, to a weight, because you think that you're going to be happy once you reach those things, you will not be happy, because it's also kind of like when somebody tries to make more money. Let's say they want to make X amount of money because they think they'll be happy. They make that amount of money, and what they usually find out is that they're not any more happy. They just have more expenses, or they can buy more things. They're not necessarily happy, because what happens when you set a feeling of happiness tied to a certain goal, you may reach that goal, but that goalpost will keep moving further and further away from you. And if your happiness is tied to that goalpost, your happiness will keep getting further and further away from you. So tying happiness to other things in life, like maybe relationships, like being content, being comfortable, or just finding yourself the best way possible, is a better option than to try to tie yourself or your happiness to certain tangible things. Like maybe it's a certain physique, maybe it's a weight, or having something in your life. Because if that's what you tie your happiness to, you'll find that it's usually not attainable. And as far as what Charlie's been doing, if he gets some meal prep that actually makes all the meals for him, that takes the frustration out of tracking meals, that will provide more results. On top of that, there was a video, I believe, of him running in the sand on the beach. And as far as looking at that, that's a very high intensity thing. Like jogging by itself is intense. Running by itself is even more intense, than running on the beach is super intense and super tiring, especially for somebody who's overweight. And the likelihood of somebody sticking to something as intense as running, even on the sand, compared to maybe walking, the compliance it's not going to be high, because the person is not going to look forward to that high intensity of activity, and they will probably not be consistent with it. And as far as if that was replaced for walking, for example, the person, like Charlie, he can have a work meeting during that walk, right? He can actually look forward to it and not just dread every time that he has to do a walk. So compliance with doing less and more consistently is better than being more intense and just kind of doing things for a few days as intensely as possible and, hoping for the best. So meal prep would definitely help out. Doing less but doing more consistently will help out, and just trying to cut the things out of the entire routine that add more details, more frustration, more things that are focused on that don't really drive results, like the different kinds of trackings for the body. It's cool to look at, but it's not beneficial as far as the overall progress. And let me know down below in the comments what you think about his entire journey, what he can do differently, what he's doing that you may think isn't correct or could be adjusted a little bit. And make sure you like the video, you follow me, subscribe to me, and I'll see you next time.